he started by legendary pilot Baloo von Brunwald and his team, now run by his radical sidekick turned super dependable pilot, me, Kit Cloudkicker. Thank you for hiring us to take you higher.
This episode is sort of interesting, but I think the bigger issue here, and I think a thing a lot of people are talking about, is sort of how Talespin is brought into the Ducktales universe. So the premise is pretty straightforward. Huey, Della, and Dewey are looking for one of the mysteries of Isabella Finch, and it's this stone which is going to be used to create the Wuzzles. Let's just talk about this. The Wuzzles, which was an old cartoon. Actually, I believe it predates DuckTales, and that's saying something. And what it was about this sort of abomination to nature and God and even science, where these animals were like hybrids of other animals. Like there's Bumble Lion, Butter Bear, Ellaroo. It was weird, but it was harmless. It wasn't like, say, Cat Dog, where the more you thought about it, the worse it got. And at the same time, turns out the last person to have this stone was Kit Cloudkicker, who was, doing a job for Fowl. Then he lost it, and yeah, this leads to Della and the trio meeting Kit and us meeting the world of Talespin, which we sort of already met earlier when we met Don Carnage. Even earlier in the pilot episode, when Dewey mentions that they can get to Cape Suzette. So we sort of already knew that this existed. The problem is, though, I don't like this take on it. So 2017, the reboot's always sort of taken a new approach to other stories, to sort of like create sort of like a Disney afternoon verse, which had only sort of existed in theory, really. There was never any real concrete way to really confirm it happened outside of the DuckTales and Darkwing Duck crossover comic, which was pretty fun. Darkwing Duck, I think, is the best adaptation they've done because it really played around with the source material. Goofy showing up, thereby granting the Goof Troop a form of canonity. We'll make it canonical. I think that's the right word for it. That works as well. Rescue Rangers was a cute little add-on. Because remember when we talked about it before, it turns out they were possibly thinking of doing their own thing with it, which is why they weren't sure if they could use it. That's fine. Here, though, it feels like my one time, I gotta say, they just sort of fumbled it here. So the premise of this is Kit owns Hire for Hire, and Hire for Hire used to belong to Baloo. Now this is this is actually a pretty major retcon. In the original Talespin cartoon, Baloo works for Hire, and Hire for Hire is owned by Rebecca Cunningham, and Baloo had lost the Sea Duck because he didn't keep up with the payments, and Rebecca ended up buying it. So there's that. And Kit was just this kid that Baloo took in. And that was a great story, and I can understand Baloo not being in this one. I think that's fine. And I really like the idea that, Della knew Kit and Molly. They went to flight school together. My sort of headcanon for it was that Della knew Baloo, that, Scrooge knows Della wants to fly, and, Scrooge, he knows of Hire for Hire, like, he's probably, used them once or twice. So he calls Rebecca to get in touch with Baloo, some flying lessons, and Della meets Kit and Molly, and it just sort of works. It's great. This one here just sort of put Kit in this weirder position of a more irresponsible version of Baloo, I think. And I think that's just sort of a mistake. I think, if anything, we should see Kit and, by extension, Molly sort of trying to live in the shadow of this sort of their parents. Molly's actual mother, Rebecca, and Kit's surrogate father, Baloo. I think that would have been a fun story to tell and see them break out of it. You can even have Huey and Dewey sort of help guide them through it. That would have been a fun story, as well as sort of giving this sort of friendship idea between Della, Kit and Molly. The idea that, you know, Della had other friends outside of, you know, Selene, the goddess Selene, I think that would have worked too. It's even weirder because going by the flashback, like, Don Carnage doesn't really, I don't know, like the fact that Molly just sort of shows up and fixes it as opposed to, I don't know, it's not the story I'd want to tell. And I know that's sort of unfair because, you know, I'm not on the writing team. You can make the default stupid argument that, you know, this isn't for you. You know, the idea that it's not for me specifically. But I don't know, it feels like we sort of did Kid a disservice. We did Talespin a disservice. But I don't know, it feels like we sort of did Kid a disservice. We did Talespin a disservice. I don't think there's going to be a Talespin cartoon. Talespin was never that big, nor did I really think it had that sort of audience, especially with the direction they're going, where it's just going to be Kit and Molly as daredevils. I don't know. Why we couldn't just continue the legacy of Hire for Hire is beyond me. I don't know. And why wasn't there Rebecca? We could have at least confirmed that Rebecca and Baloo hooked up. We could have at least confirmed that. Come on, Disney. Give me that at least. The story with Dewey, learning to just sort of appreciate that there's something awesome about doing something well as opposed to doing something flashy. It's alright. I didn't really think Dewey was that into being a pilot, but whatevs. It's a great Della moment. And I like how Della is very serious about being a pilot. I do like that. We saw it again. We saw it earlier with Launchpad. We're seeing it here again. It's a great little nod, and you could argue that it is a bit of is a result of her time on the moon. I don't think so. Della doesn't really talk about that, nor do I think that's really had any real effect on her overall character. Like, is Della that different from when she took the Spear of Selene into space as opposed to when she's come back? Maybe, maybe not. It's hard to tell. We know she's different from when she was a kid, but everyone's different from then. I don't know. Anyway, with that in mind, this brings us a stop here. So if you're new to the Bucket Think Tank, feel free to like, comment, share, subscribe, check out some other videos, and I will catch you all later. This is the Bucket Think Tank signing off. Thanks for watching, and as always, may your fandom serve you well.
It's the terrible pilot now, everyone!